Well, we don't really gavel this because it is work study session, but this is a special meeting that we've called for a work study session. And having said that, we had a change as far as county attorney, and so we're just wanting to gather information. And in work study sessions, no formal actions can ever be taken, but we can discuss things and go about anywhere with it. So did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Brock Abbey. I'm the new county attorney. This is my first official week starting. I was here about half the time last week and starting today full time. Been an attorney for about 11, 12 years now. I started out in Gillen, my hometown, as a assistant county attorney, then county attorney, and moved to Salina and spent about 7 or 8 years there. For 1 year here, back to Salina for a year, and now here I am back. I'm grateful that you all agreed to meet with me today, especially as I understand the budget session and my session with you Thursday morning. So I wanted to have a chance to talk to you and meet with you before that to kind of explain some of the things going on in our office right now and what I expect to see, or some of the requests that you'll see in our budget. One of those I just learned of last week. Two probably I learned of last week, but we're gonna have one of our assistants is leaving. He gave me his notice. I anticipate he'll be leaving his last day this Friday. So we're going to have a vacancy in the office for an attorney. And the other is the county attorney's office. Some of the attorneys who accept appointments on cases. We have a legal software that we use. It's called LexisNexis, is what we use right now. Before, it's been a fee paid from the law library fund. There's a portion of all criminal docket fees that go into the law library fund, and that was been used to pay for that service for, again, the county attorney's office, the judges, and some of the attorneys that take appointments. The contract is up at the end of August, is my understanding, and the court has notified us that they are going to move to another service, Westlaw, and that's under a contract that the judicial branch has with the Office of Judicial Administration. So they're going to move to that on their own, which will leave the county attorney's office without a legal research software. It's a software that we can log on to and look up cases in order to do our briefs for appellate cases, for motion practice in the district court. So it's an invaluable resource. And because it's invaluable, I think it's pricey. So I've reached out to at least the Westlaw representative for this area and was expecting a quote from him for our office. Today, I haven't received it. He said he'd get it to me today at the latest, but I haven't got it. That has the choice of going under the state. The state has a contract with Westlaw, or Thomson Reuters is the company it comes under. It has a kind of a beneficial contract that lower levels of government can use to get a better rate on that. So he's going to provide me that quote as well. And then I'll need to reach out to LexisNexis, but I assume that that's probably going to be a cost that we're going to have to absorb somehow. Yeah, so our office has that function and can do those things.
Would you touch on a little bit who utilizes that? Because I know there's some outside firms that.
Well, the law library paid for those other attorneys to have it. You know, I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'm just going to ask you to pay for 2 to 3 licenses, depending on what the price comes back as. They don't allow us to share passwords. If we get caught doing that, we'll be in trouble. So if we have 2 or 3 attorneys in the office, I would say at most 2 would probably be using it at a time. And we could try that, but I did ask them for quotes for 2 and 3 just to see where it would land us. The assistants won't need access to that or anything.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What's the timeline? I know that, you know, when Marcus should be here for this question too, is what's the difference in the amount we're spending now and what we're going to have to pay?
I don't know, because I don't know what the law library.
That's right. You said you hadn't got a quote.
Yeah, from Westlaw.
It's not coming out of any of our funds.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so this is going to be a brand new expense to us.
Yeah, that's what I
The
mean.
law, yeah, the
That's
law
what I-
number is out of, it's.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. It's new expense.
Yes, yes.
We don't know what
it's a Brand new.
And I
expense.
kind of listened to you, I'd have heard, you don't know what it is yet, because you just said that and come back. My fault.
Guessing
Yeah, that's
an
it.
estimate off the website, it depends on which package you get from, they used to have it as like a à la carte thing. You could pick and choose what you wanted to subscribe to, but now he told me it's basically one package that includes kind of the limited stuff and then one package that includes everything they offer. So they're going to give me quotes on that, but I would venture to estimate just from what I saw on the website, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of a few hundred to several $100s a month, depending on which package.
In other words, the Chevy package, the Cadillac package is different.
Yeah, it depends on how many passwords you have, how many.
In other words,
you get
the more you use, I mean, the more people you have on it, the more it's going to cost you, or is it
It's,
a blanket?
it is, the more people you have, the more it's going to cost you, but the more, it's like buying in bulk, the more you get, the cheaper they get at the end of the
Right.
line. So 3 will probably be more than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then the other thing is advertising to replace the assistant who's leaving. I can tell you, before I started here, I was offered 3 other jobs just because there's a terrible shortage of attorneys. And for me, a terrible shortage of attorneys doing criminal law, and that's on both sides. The public defender's office in Salina, last I knew, is authorized for 7 or 8 attorneys, and they only have 2. The public defender's office in Junction City, I asked Ms. Miller this morning, I believe she said they're down 3 attorneys. It's talking to the other prosecutors. You know, we have 105 counties with a county attorney or district attorney, and there's, my understanding, at least 35 open jobs in prosecutors' offices just for prosecutors. That's the competition we're looking at when we try and compete to recruit new attorneys out here, you know, both sides. So those are the things I'm going to be looking at with Janelle and Marcus on our budget to see. I pulled the budgets from some of those other counties about our size just to see where they were at, so we can kind of look at something and hopefully present it to you on Thursday morning.
Now, previously on the assistant attorney, we had what type of salary?
We were in that 85 range.
Mhm. And you're indicating
Well,
supply and demand that probably 85 is not going to attract.
I can tell you, one of the counties in this area bigger than ours that offered me a job offered me an assistant county attorney position for 100. And at that they advertised KCDAA, all of them, and they only got 1 applicant. So she had told me you should make your own offer to the county for more than 100,000 and see where it goes. So that's the level of competition, I guess, for a county. I would say probably, I don't know exactly where there are, but probably 8,000 to 10,000 people bigger than Dickinson County.
Yeah. Now, as far as the judicial activity, indication of more activity, or, you know, sometimes we'll get the report from just what's going on from the judicial district, and if we're going to have a trial or something like that, you know, they will tell us there's the potential for 3 trials or 4. And of course, there's some that are don't reach that level, but sometimes parking can be an issue and a concern. And so we work with that. I mean, there is parking, but there's a parking lot across the street and things like that. So it makes a difference at jury pool. And others are showing up, but
For bigger cases like that, where we bring in more people, you know, it'd be up to Judge Sexton, but sometimes how I've seen that done is if you're going to have a big panel or pool of jurors, you might stagger them every so often. So you have 30 or 40 people come in at one time, 30 or 40 people come in at the next time. So that way the first group has a chance to leave before the second one's there.
And maybe the point I was making, and I probably didn't explain myself very well, is that I'm assuming that takes more county attorney time
It does.
on a jury trial. And I mean, there's certain trials that have to be by jury, or they should be. I mean, there's not room to do much.
Well, anything that's a class B misdemeanor or higher, there's a right to a jury trial. So on a misdemeanor, a defendant can waive their right to a jury trial and have it to the judge. And there's nothing the county attorney's office can do about that. In a felony case, both the defendant, the county attorney, and the judge have to agree to do that by a bench trial.
And we've had
It's very rare.
We've had a few where it's a murder case that's come up where they've, brought in people from AG's office and such. So,
Yes.
As far as I know, based on what Cindy reported, I don't think it was in May, because that was the last one that we had. I think there's one jury trial that's tentatively scheduled for this month, but it sounds like it's still in mediation. So at least right now.
The one that was set to begin next week was just pulled from the trial calendar
Okay.
today. It's set for, it's still set for next week, but not with the jury. It's for a different motion hearing.
so how long would you anticipate it may take to fill that position? I mean, a reasonable,
I'm sorry,
that's why I should have stepped behind Craig. But
It took Sarah 9 months.
I printed so when I could, Janelle and I and Marcus talked about the budget, what we asked for. Some of these postings, so the McPherson County one where she advertised, that one was posted in May and still has only got one applicant. Some of these other counties, Shawnee County, the Attorney General's office, that are still listed, available or posted in March and February of 23. Sedgwick County, February 23. Miami County, January of 23. Barton County, January of 23.
all I was referencing is Miami County, because that's, we get the KCC, or the KCA, and it said that it's been there, I thought it'd been longer than that.
And it might be, they might have.
No, I'm just saying that's what, I thought probably been longer than that, but they've been advertising, and so there's county counselor positions. A couple, well, they did hire county counselor over Riley County.
Did they?
Yeah.
Because he's retiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Miami counties might have been on and they took it off for a little bit and then put it back on too,
Oh, and this is just KCDAA listings. That's just prosecutors' offices.
Not making why the fact is, but we're having a hard time finding employees to do
Yeah.
any kind of labor. Then you get lawyers and doctors and dentists. Your pool's even smaller.
well, no, go ahead, sorry.
Part of that is I've heard that there's lower number of attorneys come out of law school too. 12 years ago when I came out, you couldn't find a job. This kind of job was perfect coming out of law school, because if you found this job, you were lucky to have it. But now it's the invert. I think when they had that huge problem, they started discouraging so many people going to law school, and it's kind of had that reverse impact now where there's a big shortage.
and I'm sure you mentioned this, but now would you attend law school at
Washburn.
Washburn?
Yeah.
I would.
No,
I've always thought,
I'm a basketball fan.
if there's some way to get a hold of Washburn and tap into that, I'm sure people do try to make an extra effort to reach some of the law students.
They have an internship program through Dane Hansen, where the Dane Hansen, I think, gives them like a $5,000 stipend, and they're sent into not just prosecutors, but law offices in smaller rural areas. And that we kind of try and use that as a retention deal, like come be an intern in our office, see if you like the work, you like it. When you get out of law school, you can have a job kind of thing. So.
We're out of the Dean Hansen area though.
Oh, are we? Okay. By population? Okay.
By geography.
Every once in a while, they do something to this area, but we are a few counties away from that area. But they
Save me from contacting.
they've helped Eisenhower. They've helped Eisenhower Foundation. Maybe that's something.
It may still be worth reaching out to.
Oh, yeah.
I got
the email. Maybe we need to lobby
Yeah.
Dane Hanson's.
And
The population area they handle
Mhm.
is shrinking.
True.
So adding us would still be serving the same population.
Right, they can just bypass Saline County. They're okay with
Well, it's not rural enough. Yeah.
And when they get to
They go further north
Right,
than Sling County.
yeah.
yeah. But when they get to a certain point in law school, they can get a student license. So they can actually do some of the courtroom work too. That makes it kind of an incentive for them to get some experience before they get out of law school.
So how do things get accomplished while we have this vacancy in the office?
Well, Daryl and I will still be there. We're gonna have to split up all that work. And I think, Ellen Mitchell is a special prosecutor for a murder case that happened before. And I believe that one is set for trial in July also. And so I can't pick up a murder trial and do it in a month. So I'm gonna plan on keeping her doing that so
Sure.
she can finish. There's a volume of evidence in that case that is just not feasible for somebody to pick up.
Is AG going to assist in that, or is that?
No, I can probably help her. I can assist her, but she knows way more about it than me at this point and has done all the pretrial stuff so far. So
That one that they helped us because it was such a high profile. We had an instance where someone from Kansas City stopped at Solomon at what was a truck stop at the time and went north and couldn't figure out where interstate was. So they kept going north 4 or 5 miles and went through Highway 18, and it was a muddy road as soon as they crossed over and got stuck. And then they ended up murdering a young couple. I think because of the high profile. And then they made it back to Kansas City and said their car was stolen
somebody else did it.
and happened to be, well, and then each one blamed the other in the trial. There were 2 of them. But anyway, I think the AG's office came in on that. Just
They stole it.
horrific.
Stole a vehicle, and it was a case.
state vehicle.
Yeah, stole a state vehicle. Yeah. So I'm sure that's one of the reasons
Was
why
one
they
of the
were.
reasons too, yeah.
No, I would hope to keep all of our cases. I think it'd be a rarity that I would need to or have to ask the Attorney General's office for help. So hopefully that's a money saver too, because I know you have to pay them to do the work too.
Yeah. With no or little control was my
Right.
assumption, so.
Right. And that one's not the only murder case we have pending right now. So, we need the help because if one's in trial for a week or 2 weeks, we only have one available, and it's tough. It'd be tough to do that because if anyone's sick or on vacation or something like that, it's just with the number and types of cases we have.
And of course, our finance director isn't here, but eventually it's part of the discussion. So where is the financial means to address this situation?
So this department's budget is in the general fund. And we should be able to absorb some for this year. We should be able to absorb it, I believe. Marcus is looking at that.
To finish out the year.
To finish out the year. And Marcus is looking at that, and we're going to meet with Brock tomorrow and kind of get to the nuts and bolts of the dollars, because obviously he wasn't here when we met with Sarah. Then we'll have to plan for it for next year, put it in the 2024 budget. So, but since he's going to be down an attorney, there's going to be the savings there. Because I think you're not going to be able to hire an attorney for a couple months,
Right.
at least, if he can find one. And even using, and I don't know if Ellen would be able to do it and have time, I seriously doubt it, but doing another contract for an employee to handle any overload, if you can find somebody to do that.
Ellen is working almost full time on her contract for McPherson County because they can't find anyone.
Right.
So, and I could be wrong, but I think it's cheaper to pay somebody their salary and stuff than
Mhm.
what most attorneys would want under a contract to work hourly to do that.
Plus finding somebody.
Right. The contract way, I think is probably not
So-
sustainable to a budget. But
This is more of a philosophical question, I guess. And I'm sure there are certain parameters as far as the 8th Judicial District and all districts, but if every county in Kansas is experiencing some of this, and I think the further out in western Kansas, it's more difficult to address it because you've got limited population, but you still need a county attorney and so on. You know, in some professions, they've enabled people with special training and education that were not, say, in an attorney or in the medical field. They wouldn't necessarily be doctors for anesthesiology, and now you can have someone that it's a, what do they call them, PRNA.
A nurse anesthetist or
Yes,
something.
yes.
And does that have to come from the feds or the state? Is there something over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years or decade they need to do to shore up? I mean, I know you want an attorney there. If something happens, the community expects a prosecution, and they expect the person that's guilty, if they're indeed guilty, to be found guilty, and they want the court system to work.
It's the Supreme Court regulates attorney licensure, so they haven't authorized any kind of apprenticeships or anything like that. The student licenses from law students is the closest we have to that.
Is that day coming, or is that something to?
I don't think so.
I mean, what's the long-term
Supreme Court is
solution?
really protective of only attorneys practicing law.
Mm-hmm.
Even the student licenses can only practice under an attorney. The attorney has to accept them and authorize them to practice under their license and that sort of thing.
I would be concerned about the liability back on
Yeah.
the county.
Yeah. Well, it would have to come from, but
Right.
still,
Yeah.
But for what
either
you
that or we need to get more attorneys going through the
Mhm.
system.
mentioned, some of the smaller county attorneys, for instance, in Western Kansas, where I'm from, they're not as busy, where you might have one county attorney that's the same person in 2 or 3 or 4 counties. Or you might have one county attorney in one county, but he also he has his own law practice on the side doing other stuff,
Mhm.
civil work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or they have time to do that, but this office is too much of a full-time for the people we have to.
Well, there's 5 counties in Kansas that are less than 2,000 population. So
So they're one of those.
we're double what 5 counties combined are.
Yeah.
Population wise.
And those, and even the ones probably to 5,000 or 6,000 probably only have one attorney.
And they still have a private practice problem.
And yeah.
Well, I go back when when the county attorney back when my mom was here, I mean, we were 20,000 and they still had the county attorney had their own private practice.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't want to say.
Max Siegel did that.
The
John Christner.
workload is picked up just because we've come,
It's kind of that too. I mean,
well,
I wasn't in Saline County when they had 3 assistant county attorneys, but now they have and now they're asking for 2 more to be 10. So
we're more of a suing society besides criminal society. I mean,
I could go back to school.
yeah, 5 years.
4 years discount.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had this meeting and let me talk about these things, because these are the things I'm going to be looking at when I look at the budget, and I didn't want it to be a shock to you for me to come in and whatever the numbers we talk about or whatever we bring to you to go, oh my God, why is he asking for this or something like that? So
Well, we do appreciate your interest in Dixon County and the fact that you applied as county attorney. And I had talked to some of the precinct committee people that knew of you for various reasons and said we were getting someone really great. So, I mean, that's what I heard.
You were on the right side then, so.
well,
Maybe they had a nephew who's in trouble. But
I had worked here for that 1 year, but what I talked about them and even, the sheriff and stuff when we talked is I remember that kind of the athletics from when I was in high school in the early 2000s and Goodland and Abilene wrestling and stuff at state wrestling. So
yeah,
that's really where I got familiar with Abilene, I guess.
You're from Goodland?
Yeah, born and raised in Goodland.
Back when late 60s, there was 2 brothers out there that went undefeated. 4 years in high school.
Foxy was the rough.
Yeah,
Still are.
Foxy was good, Atwood was good.
That's from.
Saney had good.
Drug court, you going to support that or?
Yeah, I I talked to the judge about that too, and we talked about it at the convention. Saline County started there about 10 years ago, and I worked on it for a little bit while I was there. And we had 6 or 7 attorneys, so when I was new, me and another attorney did it, and then as we moved up doing different types of cases, different attorneys moved in and doing that. But I definitely can see the value in that for kicking a bad drug addiction and drug habit.
Just so you know, I've invited Jamie Wall Mitchell to go with me on Wednesday to the radio, and we'll talk about it, especially considering graduation is that day. So at least put some information out about it. You can be on the radio on Wednesday mornings if you like, for just FYI.
On Wednesday mornings, just in general, or?
I want to listen to a couple of them before you.
Ratings
All
go
of
up.
it, yes, ratings go up, exactly.
John Anderson does a real nice job over at the radio station and will ask a lot of questions. And there's not a script, but sometimes he will ask something unexpected and kind of down a rabbit trail, and then then he follows up on it. And it's kind of like you almost have to, sometimes people will kind of redirect and say, I'm glad you brought that up, but this is something we really need to talk about and not to avoid anything, but really kind of get to the meat of the issue when you're on there. But
That sounds like when we go to the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, 3 or 7 judges that are going to ask you questions, and they're never prepared or know what they're going to ask you.
Yeah. But he interviews from the county, but also the school district and the city.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, he, kind of, if something's being discussed, he kind of brings it up. This is the coffee talk questions or.
Oh, I'm used to listening to coffee talk. So he invites you on, and that's how it works.
No, Dickinson County has a
Oh,
time
okay.
slot at
Oh, okay.
8:35 every Wednesday. Yeah.
But if time allowed, Janelle could get you into the rotation where, maybe in a few weeks or a month or so.
Yeah, we'll get
And
it.
if you don't want to do it, you're an elected official, you don't have to.
Exactly.
Let me look at my schedule.
Yeah.
I'll get back.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. If you think of anything later, you'll have my email and.
So you have a KU.
Yeah.
The other side, you should put K-State for football.
Yeah.
Come on, yeah.
I'm wondering if they make one with both of them on there. You think
Like a, I had gotten a newsletter from someone new to the community, and they put out there they were a Nebraska fan and also a Bronco fan. I thought, well,
Yeah.
I guess just tell you obviously I think they were from Western Nebraska though, so probably now Goodland. I don't know if you probably know people out there that back in the day when you could only get the closest TV station and you could only get one football game,
Mhm.
a lot of Western Kansas people, Broncos were the only team they could watch on TV. So they
Right.
kind of ended up in the Denver fold.
the media market? Yeah, there's a lot of Broncos fans. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the NFL myself in a lot of years. So I watch the Chiefs now because my friends do, but.
I watch the halftime show.
Oh, especially the Super Bowl. Is that what you're?
Yeah, you used to, but that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty bad. You don't know who's playing for the Super Bowl. I know Kansas City play, but I don't know who they play.
Philadelphia.
Eagles.
Well, they played Green Bay the first time. So.
Okay, it's no quiz.
I had them on my list.
Well, I guess we'll need to get some of that advertising out and do advertisements go out of state? I mean, I would think occasionally, or do we reach out to Fort Riley? Do you ever have a situation where someone ends up in Fort Riley and their spouse is an attorney, because that's kind of what happened last time.
This is true, but when we advertise through Civic HR, it does go out on Indeed. So it's going to hit a lot of the markets there, but if it's something that we need to place an ad in, then Marcia will work with you and we can get it maybe some places that you think. Obviously, you'll advertise in your,
KCDA,
right?
sometimes you get lucky and you can poach attorneys from other offices.
I think a lot of it's going to be word of mouth though.
Yeah.
And reaching out into that knowledge base that you've got and maybe tapping into some of the attorneys around here and see if they know of anybody or something.
We have a new courthouse. I mean, that's, not every county can
Yes.
say that. And
The County and District Attorneys Association conference is June 22nd and 23rd. It's not in person, it's virtual this time, so it's not as much networking kind of going on virtually, but I think they're doing one virtual and one in person each year now.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, I thought you guys went last year. in person.
Yeah, I was surprised this one wasn't virtual. I heard that they're going to try and do one virtual and one in person each year. The virtual one, so the bigger DA's offices can have more people attend.
Okay.
Don't have to travel.
have you had a little bit of a tour of the jail, or at least you're familiar with the parts where people can meet with
Yep. And I've
incarcerated persons? I mean, from what we were told, and it looks this way, we've got a really great setup.
Yep. And I've been, Judge Sexton took me behind his office for that kind of secure corridor from the jail to the courtrooms. I think before I left the last time, I think I had been into like Jerry's office and seen the offices and the sheriff's office part of it too. I don't know that I've been in the jail part itself.
Okay, yeah.
And if you wanted to go in there, just.
Yeah, they would show me.
But I think, that's something, to my knowledge, we never had any serious issues with security as far as safety. But the potential and considering how outdated a lot of counties are, I mean, I would think that would be something that would be a nice benefit, you might say, to maybe, I don't know if it'd be a tipping point or not, but
It's a good security feature for the jail, I think, especially to prevent escapes, to have a secure right to the courtroom there.
And you were here before where, one of the things that was, always bothered me, and I just wasn't a good situation is the judge, both attorneys, the convicted person or incarcerated person could be handcuffed walking down the halls, witnesses, jurors, the victims, and they're all in this hallway that isn't that wide.
Yeah.
And
We did that in Saline County, and it's still that way there. So, yeah.
And I mean, there's security and so on, but if anything ever would go awry, things happen so fast that
I don't think I practiced in the building before you guys did the renovations. The whole time I was here, we were out at Stroh Hall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think I did the only jury trial out there.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah.
That had to be an experience.
Yeah. It was under the COVID protocol, so there were the jurors were all spaced out in the
Mhm.
room and chairs and
Remember, they also bought the soccer mom bubble things
Yeah.
too. I don't know if they ever used them, but yeah.
yeah.
Is that right?
Mhm. Yep,
Surplus.
surplus them, yes. Yeah.
Man, I would have bought one.
Darn it.
You
I'm looking for one.
can use one of those instead of a poncho. If you're-
There you go, exactly.
Take it to the K-State game
Mhm.
and have someone roll you in.
Yeah.
Craig, do you have anything other than
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ron?
Glad to be back. Excited.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
Rhonda, we're glad you could join us online, and sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but we got through it.
Yeah. I don't think she had any other questions other than that.
That shouldn't ask him.
True, that's true.
That's not a Q&A.
She was just letting us.
So our next Time we meet will be Thursday,
Thursday at 8:30.
Yeah,
Other than- other than
Drug court on Wednesday.
Yeah, drug court on
we are
Wednesday.
going to attend drug court just to observe.
Mhm.
I mean,
The
not a
graduation.
formal meeting, but,
Right.
okay,
Mhm.
that's on Wednesday.
That's on Wednesday at 3:30 in courtroom 1, and then we'll come down for a reception. They have one graduate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Friday, I have
Thank you very much.
appointments and